And the bottom right for the starving camels in the red. It's Firefly.
My screen, it says Hearthstone, but on yours it says Firefly, so that's all that counts. And in the top left-hand side, it is, for no team, SCV.
Gotta get you a new logos, Moncats. He's playing for Mystery Gaming, which is that team that popped up for the WTL, signed Classic for about 3 days, and then
nice.
You know, left off when they
mysteriously dropped them.
Yeah, it was. I swear. Well, in fairness to Classic, though, I swear that man plays better when he's teamless than when he's on a team.
Quite possible. Trying to put himself out there and whatnot. Classic has fantastic as updates. Can't wait for the tournaments to merge into the big winners region.
Oh yeah. And by the way, talking about how Classic has been doing well, the GSL round of 8, the second series, is going to be starting tomorrow at 11:30 East Central European Standard Time, which is, hey, you know what? It's the GSL. They've had some great matches thus far, and I'm excited for the round of 8 to complete.
Should be very exciting indeed. One of the strongest regions still.
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, we have Firefly being cheeky already.
Yeah, but this is not the most cheeky thing, right? Okay, it's cheeky, absolutely, but it's not. I'm going to drop a. I mean, you're not going to put a Robo top, right? But I'm not going to drop a Stargate, a Dark Shrine, something like that. This is just, hey, SCV, I know you're scouting me, so I'm going to put a pylon on the map, and then you're just going to be honor bound to scout a little bit because, you know, I know you can count pylons, so yeah, just be a little afraid.
Yeah, giving his opponent a little bit of a respect there, saying you can definitely count, and his opponent's going to be looking for the proxy with 2 probes out on the map, so this is already paying off for Firefly quite nicely, as the pylon has not been spotted, and it's in the most inconspicuous spot that you could put it pretty much. Well done by him.
Yeah, that's not really something that you're going to scout super easily, and well, for now, actually, the probe, yeah, it gets a full scout. It's not going to survive all that much longer, but seeing that this is Stalker Adept by itself is another little bit of a nice scout here. You know, Firefly knows what his opponent has opened, and because SCV has to scout around the map to figure out where this pylon is, and by the way, he hasn't, not just yet, doesn't know where this is, he's not going to get a good understanding of what the opener was from Firefly, and, you know, that's unfortunate, because this is a pretty greedy opening here. It's Stalker, Sentry, Stalker, right? That is 3 sentries in the first, 5-6 units.
Yeah, so that's going to be really nice for Firefly and his ability to scout. The sentry did get buffed in the most recent patch as well, as far as the creation of them off of the gateway pre-warp gate. So this is, you know, taking full advantage of that. The first Adept is going to shade in, but will be force fielded by one of the 3 available force fields. Might need a second one if he wants to kill it. Not necessary, it seems. So a nice start here for Firefly.
Yeah, you know, I honestly, I didn't expect that to kill it. Okay, that's fun. Hallucinated Oracle in the main, but again, it's not going to do all that much. You look at sentries, and it's easy to forget that they actually do damage. Like, you know, 3 sentries, clearly they're not going to get the Adept, right? I mean, they just tickle things, but no. Firefly, he gets his damage, he gets his scout off into the main, and in general, this just seems like it is a fire. Oh, look at this, cats.
Yeah, doing all the cute moves here, Firefly. Starting with the pylon, then with Hallucinated Oracle, and now with the 4 probes to scout. So really, really nice moves. I mean, you love to see this, right? It's kind of just scouting everywhere, seeing if his opponent is being cheeky himself, and it'll give him a lot of assurance that that's not the case, and just kind of can sit back on macro safely and happily.
Yeah, and if you don't really feel the need to get into the main base with your hallucinations, like to have high ground vision, just being able to scout the entire map with 1 set of energy is really, really nice here as Stalkers run down the ramp. Now, I'm a little bit worried about what SCV is doing, right? He has cut probes pretty significantly here, 32 to 37. He's got a lot of units on the way. Blink is getting heavily chronoed out here. And it does feel like we're going to see some aggression coming on, cats. I mean, the Robo is just about done. I think we're going to see a Warp Prism out of there pretty quickly. And now the question is, with the hallucination, I mean, that Oracle goes down very quickly to these Stalkers. Is Firefly going to be able to figure this out?
Yeah, that's a good question, because he is taking a third, so this is more or less best case scenario for SCV. Firefly will have an Immortal by the time SCV crosses the map, but not much Sentry energy to speak of, because he has been so proactive with those hallucinations, right? So maybe there's an opening here for SCV to actually make something happen, and that would be really nice, as finally it's a hallucinated Phoenix and not an Oracle. I actually have the rebound my Sentry key to make Oracles over Phoenixes, just because I think that it's, you know, it's the more threatening unit to hallucinate as the first attack gets pushed back. And it is pretty close as far as like the speed is concerned, right? SCV not really taking the bait this time around for either of the Oracles, but that's very understandable because his first Adept scouted 3 sentries, so there's actually no possible way that there could have also been Oracles on top of that.
Yeah, and it seems like SCV is not going to commit to this too much either. He did have that timing, and he did cut probes a little bit, but he's got his third base on the way. For a second, he had caught up in probe count, but really not that much further. So, you know, he's going to move in a little bit more. But Firefly, we've been talking about his ability to maintain vision this entire map, and he's got observers everywhere. It's going to be tough for Firefly, or for SCV, to find an angle.
No, for sure. I mean, this has been a really good game so far for Firefly. Nothing much has happened. Only one Adept, I think, has gone down, maybe a probe. And yet, SCV feels like he's super far behind, just on the back of Firefly doing all the right moves and kind of like taking calculated risks on the back of just good scouting throughout. So, yeah, I'm a little bit bummed out that SCV didn't take his timing and try to make something happen with this.
Yeah, I guess the issue, does he actually, no, he still doesn't have a Warp Prism. He just, again, he got that Robo. It seemed like it was time for a push, and then he got a single Observer and is now building some Immortals. And with the inability to reinforce on a map like Gresfon, right, it is by far the longest rush distance we have, natural to natural. You do want to make sure that you have the ability to reinforce, so that Oracle will fall, or the hallucinated Oracle will go down. So, I mean, he moved in, he got a Stalker, but pushing into a Shield Battery and Immortal, Stalkers on the high ground, even if you have Blink and your opponent doesn't, without that ability to reinforce, it doesn't really feel all that good.
Yeah, SCV 4 gateways on the way, so Firefly is moving out. This is a little bit of an anti-timing should he choose to take it, in the sense that his Templar Archives is not going to be yet done, but maybe looking to warp in a couple of Archons on the next warp in. For the time being, it is Zealots. He wants to take advantage of this charge slot timing that he has, but with the 4 gateways coming up for Firefly, this could actually bode well for him.
I mean, yeah, Firefly already has his 4 gateways up, so yeah, SCV, his production's ready soon enough, but Firefly, again, his economy's there anyway, his charge is done as well, 4th base gets canceled, and even if Firefly doesn't move up the ramp here, this is already pretty substantial damage.
Yeah, as Firefly has taken his 4th base behind, the gas will get dropped very hastily in front of Firefly, which will be easy pickings for him. A lot of Stalkers, however, and a good choke, plus a Shield Battery in a great position given the angle that Firefly is taking as well here for SCV. So I think SCV should be able to hold. A little bit preemptive, however, on the battery overcharge here.
Yeah, it's a little bit awkward, and you talk about SCV being able to hold. I mean, Firefly, his supply just continues to grow here. That economic lead he had previously, those force fields are gonna be fantastic. Both Immortals go down. Now Firefly is the one with the fire base, and SCV, well, he's just got Stalkers. Blinks on top, gets 1 Immortal, but do you want to soak that damage with the Archons here? The Zealots on top? Cat, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think he could have gotten the Archon without the Blink and just blinked back to defend himself, but as a result of that, I mean, Firefly feels empowered to move on forward, and rightfully so. He's going to be able to close this game out very, very fast and very convincingly as well.
Yeah, it really all comes down to that economic lead that Firefly had. He turned it into gateways quicker, he turned it into army supply quicker, and now he's doubling it up. And yeah, losing that War Prism does mean he's going to have to back up just a little bit. He doesn't have the ability to reinforce, and we just talked about Gresfon is a massive map. But you bring your army together, you add some more Zealots, you get maybe a couple more Archons, as these Templar eventually do that. You get +2 done. Firefly, you know, he just had to wait. He actually, you know, he had to be like a Firefly. You know, you turn the light off for a second, then it comes back even brighter.
Yeah, I mean, there's very low chance for SCV to make anything happen in this game, as his first Archon will pop. The second fat battery overcharge is going to be available, but it's going to be quickly targeted down here for Firefly, and SCV will GG out. Firefly with a very convincing Game 1 victory.
Yeah, Cats, I think that really all just this comes down to Firefly kept probing when SCV did not. Firefly had a quicker third than SCV did. So for the majority of that mid game, Firefly was up 8-10 workers. He had a significant economic lead that turned into quicker gateways, that turned into more army, that turned into better upgrades or faster upgrades. And just kind of in general, it'd be tempting to talk about, oh, well, it was the move that killed the fourth or something. That just was a macro victory in a way that we don't often see.
Yeah, he was just much better, right? Like, and I think he was consistent with his opening as far as the sentries, because that allowed him to take all of these economic risks. So he did have the faster third, he did have the faster probing, he did have the faster fourth, like you said, the upgrades, and therefore, right, his economy ramping up means he's gonna have quicker production. Regardless, I think SCV also botched the defense because, while yeah, Firefly had a strong timing on paper and looking at the supply and the production, etc., positionally, I think that SCV was in a good position where he had a lot of stalkers. And when you have that many stalkers, it's very difficult for the Zealots to find the surface area, right? Like near that choke at the third. And the shield battery was perfectly positioned as well, but for no reason. I think he uses his first overcharge preemptively for no reason. Well, the reason was obviously to try to snipe the Immortal, but really ill-advised to go and soak up as much damage, like you pointed out during the game, in order to do so. So I think that on top of all the macro mistakes, also on the micro and the defense and the overall positioning, the SCV kind of botching good cards that he had on defense there.
Yeah, I mean, I worry. I know you were talking about, positionally, the Zealots, they will struggle to make contact a little bit, right, in that position, but I don't know that SCV was ever going to be able to hold on to that fourth. And as we were talking about, even canceling the fourth base when yours is halfway done and maintaining that supply lead, so it's really going to be rather hard for SCV to run on the map, that probably would have been enough for Firefly to put himself, maybe not to end the game, but again, put himself in a pretty significant advantage. So what I kind of want to see SCV just maybe play a crisper early game in game 2, or maybe kind of lean into a macro game just a little bit more, because we talked about the timing he tried to go for, but it was like plus it didn't look like it had any chance of working. So instead, yeah, just don't cut your probes, take your third, play that really standard macro game, and see if you can match Firefly there. Is that maybe kind of the play?
Yeah, I mean, he was hard pressed to also like cut probes, perhaps because Firefly was playing the mind games too, right? Like there was the missing pylon, which already amounts to something in the way that you have to scout with 2 probes at that point, or at least SCV felt like he needed to scout with 2 probes. He scouts all of the positions where, he would be at a threat where a proxy would be worth dropping. Like you pointed out, the pylon all the way off to the side of the map makes it so that a proxy is terribly ineffective because it's actually not cutting the distance there, right? So why would you ever proxy there? And therefore the pylon doesn't really get scouted. So that results in a lot of loss mining early on for SCV. And maybe that is also why he felt like he needed to be a little bit more defensive, like he needed to account for things that he wasn't seeing, because while the pylon wasn't ever going to be a Stargate or a Robo, it could have very well been like Dark Templars, for example, and that's why we see the Robo rushed and the one observer popped out as well, right? So a lot of investments that SCV felt like he had to make, and on top of that, his game just wasn't clean. So it's just compounding effects where nothing went right for him, and Firefly just played beautifully without really, there wasn't much of a fight or anything on the map, but he was getting ahead every single move he made.
Yeah, and that proxy pylon is a really good call, Cats. But, it's game 2, and I don't know that we're going to see a proxy pylon once again. We're going to have to find out, though, because here we are.
Here we are indeed. And the bottom left-hand side, trailing now in the series for Mystery Gaming, it is SCV.
And to the upper right, in the red, he's up 1 game here, looking to move to that 2-1 scoreline. Firefly.
Yeah, masterclass on the mind games there from him on the first game, and I would almost want to see a real proxy this game, just because you're gonna have your opponent kind of doubting himself, and it will be a little bit more difficult to make the decision to commit again to like double scout out on the map and stuff like that when your opponent just bamboozled you and you kind of lost as a result, or at least you probably feel like you did, right? Like again, at this level, even just scouting with an extra probe for that long, or with 2 probes for that long, is a huge deal.
Oh yeah, no, it absolutely compounds when you're on the map for that long and you just have so much less economy. It can turn into a probe difference, or a couple worker difference. I don't know that it is 6 probes at 4 minutes or whatever the lead was that Firefly had, but that does certainly lead into it. But Cats, actually, you talk about it, there's that pylon on the map again, but it seems like Firefly this time, he's not going for that proxy once again. It's just the Schrodinger's pylon, right? The whole, am I doing something? You gotta scout again, SCV, have fun.
Yeah, and SCV will be scouting with 1 probe. We'll see if he is willing to send a 2nd probe again, because again, that was a decision that came back to haunt him. And yeah, maybe it doesn't account for all the difference, but in some way it does. It's not just about the probe difference, right? Like we talked about the robo as well, and like the observer being pumped out of the robo, just a single 1 unit, because you think that if there is a proxy, it can only be a dark shrine out there. So there is a lot of compounding effects here that do happen for SCV, and they kind of suck. And like even just like 2 or 3 probes in the early game makes such a huge difference, because StarCraft is the type of game where if you have 10 stalkers versus 11 stalkers, you don't win the fight by 1 stalker. On the 11 stalker side, you win by like 4 or 5, right? So literally like 1 unit, one probe worth of mining is a massive deal, because every probe mines like 60 minerals a minute. That's like half a celote per minute.
Exactly. And you talk about having multiple stalkers winning by not a little but a lot, but we're seeing that, we're potentially going to see that happen right now, right, with the probe on the lead. But with the sentries coming down, they don't do a lot of damage, but they do enough to move things over. But here's the question, Cats. We got a couple more stalkers on the way. Is that going to be a pylon on the right side? No, just probe pulled back. With 4 more stalkers here, this hold becomes a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, I mean, there's 3 stalkers on the other side and a very narrow choke here from SCV, so executed properly, I think this could work in his favor. If he can get those force fields, if he can actually maneuver his sentries to the front, which he's trying to do now, but whiffs a little bit of one of the force fields, does get 1 stalker for his troubles. But yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. I mean, this choke is so narrow that you have to be really careful on the side of Firefly applying this pressure, and I like the strategy that SCV went for this time around.
I feel like for Firefly there, when a stalker gets caught in a force field like that, you just want to turn around and fight. I mean, the stalker's going down anyways. It's 3 sentries. You saw 3 force fields. Like, they're probably not going to have that much more energy. You got to figure out or feel like it makes more sense to just take the fight anyways. It's going to be a slightly losing one, but the force fields work on both sides. So maybe at least you get some damage done on the opposing stalkers before you do have to back up. And good news here for Firefly. This proxy gateway, well, it's going to get found out before anything started. So Firefly runs stalkers and sentries over, but he does not have the numbers to contest this.
Yeah, good positioning here for SCV. Sees 1 stalker on the high ground there and will chase it away. And yeah, it's a difficult decision to make, the turning around and fighting there, just simply because your opponent, like you said, does have the extra sentry. So are you gonna mitigate enough damage to make up for more than 1 stalker at a loss? As a nice move from SCV here, hallucinates a stalker, but now the blink is faster for Firefly, so he's gonna pounce on the opportunity, and the shield battery not able to contribute just yet. So 4 units make it 5 as the next sentry falls have already go down, and now Firefly in a commanding position here at the natural of SCV.
Oh, those force fields as well just lock the stalkers in. 1 player has blink, 1 player does not, and that really is making all the difference here. Shield battery overcharge is done now, and so you don't even have that nice defensive tool. So we're looking at 2 stalkers, 3 stalkers. Probes get pulled, 8 of them go down, and Firefly looked like he was going to do something really fancy, hallucinate a Phoenix, an Oracle, jump into the main, but it turns out he didn't have to, because his opponent moved out on the map. That turned out to be a really losing move. And at this point, SCV is dead. He can no longer mine, no longer live. And Firefly moves on to that 2-1 scoreline.